Hi there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and today we continue our coverage of the fourth year of the Clone Wars. And so far, it's been one of the most impactful years of this conflict, and we're finally winding down to this epic showdown between the Jedi and Sith, a showdown that has been thousands of years in the making. Anyway, today we'll be looking at one of the most central parts of Palpatine's plan to take over the galaxy, and that is the federalization of the banking system. A civil war is a complicated affair, and let's be honest, the Clone Wars should have been labeled as a civil war. The actual Galactic Civil War was much less of a civil war and more like a revolution against an oppressive authoritarian state. When a civil war occurs, it usually involves the separation of a nation, or in this case, the Galactic Republic. The separation, for the most part, is drawn on geographic and ideological lines. Most of the Separatist Alliance territories are located in the Outer Rim, while the core centers stay loyal to the central government. The problem with this kind of war is that there are countless organizations, factions, corporations that serve entities that belong on both sides of this war. And as the fighting began to grow in intensity and size, it became harder and harder for these third-party organizations to stay neutral. This included the Intergalactic Banking Clan, which was a massive conglomeration of banks that more or less controlled the entire galaxy's monetary system. You see, the Galactic Republic maintained a relatively loose control over the galaxy. While the Galactic Senate was a bureaucratic mess and massive, the actual federal government was quite hands-off and delegated a lot of the responsibilities we commonly associate with the federal government to private organizations and planetary-level governments. This is why the Galactic Republic actually had no equivalent to a Federal Reserve or some kind of centrally controlled banking system. This means when a financial crisis occurs or the government needs to borrow resources, they are more or less dependent on the third-party intergalactic banking clans. And while other mega conglomerates like the Trade Federation or techno-unions controlled entire industries like shipping and manufacturing, the Intergalactic Banking Clan had their hands in almost every industry, every planetary government, every local business, and even infrastructure program. Basically, anyone who needed to borrow capital ultimately ended up having their loans held in one way or another by this extremely powerful organization and its many subsidiaries. This is why Darth Plagueis, the architect of Chancellor Palpatine's rise to power and the destruction of the Republic, ultimately allied his own financial group, Damask Holdings, with the Intergalactic Banking Clan. If he needed to remove a political opponent or increase pressure on some entities, he would just use the IGBC's massive amount of power to find financial ways to pressure individuals into doing what he wanted. The Intergalactic Banking Clan's massive wealth was also what guaranteed the galactic currency, not the Galactic Republic and its own economic system. Chancellor Palpatine, whose ultimate goal was to create an autocratic regime, realized that he needed control of the intergalactic banking clans in order to really take control of the galaxy, because money rules everything. Also, the Galactic Republic was in massive debt. The Kamino and clone troopers were prohibitively expensive to create. It took 9 years of continuous nurture and training to get them ready for combat. Even compared to like a regular civilian soldier, the clone trooper already costs maybe 10 times as much, and that's not even comparing it to the Separatist droids, which could be created in like 10 minutes in a massive factory for extremely low costs. Now, despite the fact that the IGBC and Damask Holdings are heavily involved in the creation of the Separatist Alliance, the public front of the organization needed to stay neutral in order to avoid scrutiny from the Republic and also to ensure its clients that it was a stable organization that could be trusted. And while the IGBC publicly still funded Separatist worlds and interests, had the Republic found out that the IGBC was showing extreme favoritism towards the Separatist Alliance behind the scenes, the Republic most likely would have taken action in one way or another, either by trying to take control or sanctioning the banks. And so, on the world of Scipio, which was one of the most important bases for the IGBC, a neutral zone was established to accommodate representatives from both sides of the war. This was like the Switzerland of the galaxy, and clients on both sides of the conflict were expected to be on their best behavior and drop any disputes they had when they entered this neutral space. Senator Padme Amidala arrives on Scipio in order to request a loan for refugees who are escaping the horrors of the Clone Wars. So he's granted a meeting with the Core Five. This is essentially the ruling body of this corporate state. They control the bank along with the worlds within the IGBC. The leader of the Core Five, Clue the Lesser, appoints a special representative to her case, Baron Rush Clovis. Padme Amidala has quite the history with Rush Clovis. They had served in the Senate together a few years back. And let's be honest, there was definitely some kind of romantic vibe between these two, and they would make a much less weirder couple than the whole Annie and Padme situation. But earlier in the war, Rush Clovis had shown that he was in the pockets of the Separatist Alliance and branded a traitor to the Republic and lost his seat in the Senate. And Padme, of course, is all about the Republic, so she doesn't really trust him. But later that night, Clovis visits Padme via the balcony in her apartment. He's clearly in some kind of trouble. You see, he's uncovered a secret. The Intergalactic Banking Clans are actually running out of money and on the verge of collapse. Which makes sense because the Intergalactic Banking Clan was essentially funding both sides of this terrible and fake war, and it was taking the majority of the risks. And as entire worlds and economies were destroyed, it continuously lost its investments. It's surprising that only Clovis seems to have figured this out. It should have been common sense to almost every financial journalist in the galaxy, and they should have been writing all sorts of articles about what the hell was happening with the IGBC and why someone needed to investigate this organization. What Clovis wants from Padme is help in gaining access to the central vault where the Core Five keep their banking records. Clovis believes he's in danger, and shortly after, Embo, a bounty hunter you might recognize from earlier episodes, attempts to take a shot at him, proving to Padme that he is indeed in danger. Guys, just a note for future reference, Embo rarely ever misses his shots. Senator Amidala goes to Chancellor Palpatine with the information she's found, and the Chancellor suggests that she follows through and helps Clovis. Palpatine has an ulterior motive here to seize the banks, but does he actually want the galaxy to believe that the IGBC has run out of money? This could lead to very dire economic consequences for the entire system. The next morning, the Core Five reluctantly admit Padme Amidala and Clovis into their main vault to directly oversee the transaction of the relief funds. This was highly unusual, as outsiders were usually not given access to this area of the bank. But Padme argued that she had the authority of Chancellor Palpatine backing her, and more importantly, she had almost been assassinated the night before, and she wanted some more transparency about what was happening in this organization. While inspecting the vault, Padme's handmaiden destroys the power generator to the building, which allows Padme to slip away inside the vault and access the Mune's records. The bounty hunter Embo kills Padme's handmaiden, leaving her dead right next to the generator in plain sight for Mune authorities to find. Which means later that night, while checking the files with Clovis, Nix Card, senator of the IGBC, has Padme arrested for espionage. Anakin Skywalker is sent to negotiate the release of Padme Amidala. Padme brings Anakin up to speed about what's going on and tells him that they need to go to Rush Clovis and retrieve the data about the IGBC and bring it to Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin is clearly very jealous of Rush Clovis, and he's aware of Clovis's former relationship with Padme, so he's clearly not happy to find out that he's involved in this mess. But when they arrive to Clovis's residence, they find it ransacked. Luckily, they find Clovis alive and still in possession of the chip. The bounty hunter Embo arrives on scene and attempts to once again kill them, quote unquote, but Anakin, Padme, and Rush manage to escape off the planet with that data. We later find out as they leave that Darth Sidious is the one who has contracted Embo, and he clearly doesn't want the bounty hunter to actually kill Clovis. When Rush Clovis returns to Coruscant, he's met with suspicion by almost everyone he encounters. His previous ties to the Separatist Alliance and the funneling of funds to a Trade Federation droid foundry has made him incredibly unpopular. But the revelation that not only is the IGBC out of funds, but the Core 5 has been diverting money to hundreds of private individual accounts is extremely scandalous and cannot be ignored. Furthermore, Darth Sidious enlists Count Dooku to once again connect with Rush Clovis. The Separatist Alliance are actually a part of this IGBC scandal because the Separatist Alliance has not been forced to pay back any interest on their loans. This shows direct favoritism from the IGBC towards the Separatist Alliance. Now, Count Dooku tells Clovis that he doesn't want to see the banking system fail because the Separatists also rely on loans from them. Dooku offers many things to Clovis in exchange for that stability. For one, the Separatists will begin paying interest on their loan, and will even back Clovis's appointment to be the new head of the banks. Finally, Dooku is willing to give Clovis access to all of those secret accounts where the money is being diverted and essentially stolen. Armed with all of this information, Clovis presents his case to Chancellor Palpatine and the Mune government. Now, the Muun government is unaware of the IGBC's scandalous behavior, and they have their own reasons why they would want a stable banking system. After all, this is their main source of revenue, and having corruption of this level is extremely bad for the planet and their people. Clovis's discovery of the discrepancies in the IGBC records is enough for the Muun government to arrest the heads of the banking clan for corruption. At this point, a new leader for the banking system needs to be appointed. The Muun government not only wants to appoint someone that they trust, but they also want someone that their two largest clients, the Republic and Separatist Alliance, to trust as well. Because of his former ties to the Separatists, Rush Clovis is immediately accepted by the Separatist Alliance as a suitable replacement. The Muun people are also very grateful for Rush Clovis's investigation, and equally as important, Rush Clovis was actually raised by a Muun family after his own family was killed, so he understands their culture, and they in turn trust him. The Republic Senate, however, still saw Rush Clovis as a traitor, but more rational senators saw Rush as an honest individual who truly believed in the banking system. Chancellor Palpatine was willing to give his support to him as well, and so Rush Clovis wins the nomination and is declared the new leader of the IGBC. Clovis and Padme arrive on Scipio escorted by Republic gunships to begin the transition of leadership. Leader of the Separatist Senate, Senator Beck Lawwise, is also there to oversee Clovis become leader of the banks. While in his office, Rush Clovis takes his first call, which is from Count Dooku, who immediately attempts to blackmail him by revealing that it was he who gave Clovis the information about those secret accounts. Count Dooku also refuses to pay interest on Separatist loans, as he promised to do, and requests that the IGBC instead raise interest rates for the Republic. At this point, Clovis is faced with a very terrible situation. If the Separatists don't pay interest, the banking system will completely fail. Now, the IGBC has its own military force and security forces, but much of it is secretly aligned with the Separatist Alliance, and more importantly, it's not powerful enough to actually strong-arm the Separatist Alliance into repaying that debt. And so Rush Clovis's only move at this point is to increase the interest rates on Republic loans, which immediately causes an uproar in the Republic Senate. Immediately after, the Separatist Alliance launches an invasion fleet to attack Scipio. A detachment of clones underneath the command of Commander Thorn are cut off from cover and valiantly fight to the death. Let's observe a moment of silence for these very brave clones. Commander Thorn does manage to contact Padme Amidala, who in turn warns the Republic of this Separatist invasion. The Republic Senate immediately vote for a counter-invasion, and the blame is put on Rush Clovis and his secret collusion with the Separatist Alliance. Anakin Skywalker and the 501st arrive on Scipio shortly after with an armada, and a massive battle ensues in orbit between the two fleets as the 501st gets transferred to the surface and gunships escorted by squadrons of Z-95 headhunters. Eventually, Republic forces win the day and order is restored on Scipio. Shortly after, the Muun government dissolves the banking clans and cedes control of their banking system to the office of the Chancellor of the Galactic Republic. Although it is long overdue, a federal banking system is finally created to ensure that this kind of instability never happens again. Chancellor Palpatine, with great humility, accepts this responsibility and promises to return the banks to private control after the Clone Wars ends. Which, of course, will never happen. Now, I really love this arc of the Clone Wars, not only because it's really important, but it takes a relatively boring subject like how banking systems work and the federalization of banking systems and kind of explains it to us in very simplistic terms. And it also gets people who might not be interested in things like this kind of look at how these banking systems are supposed to work. And I think that's really beneficial for any person who is involved in society and works a job. You know, it's always good to have more knowledge about how the world works around you. And again, Star Wars is a great way to do something like that. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our coverage of the Clone Wars. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.